Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflakey's Emos here today with another Master Duel deck profile. Today I am bringing my budget version of giant ballpark insects. I have a better, more constructed version with higher rarity on my alt account, but I've been playing this budget version on my main account because I've been having a lot of fun with it, and sometimes it's a fun challenge to put together a budget deck. Giant Ballpark is a deck in which we utilize insect normal monsters with a really powerful field spell called Giant Ballpark that gives us an ability to summon any 3 copies of a level 4 or lower insect monster that's a normal monster on the field at once, and allows me to play some of my favorite cards from my childhood, including Insect Knight and Neo Bug, and of course the newer vanilla that is really good, Shiny Black Sea Squatter. So just a lot of good stuff. With that said, let's get into the cards. So starting off with our monsters, I'm playing 3 copies of Shiny Black Sea Squatter. It's a level 4 insect with 2000 attack. We need these lower level 4 insects with our giant ballpark field spell because it allows us to, when either player would take damage, instead of taking damage, we can send one insect monster from our deck to the grave. And if it's a normal monster, we can special summon as many copies of it from our hand, graveyard, or deck as possible, which is pretty cool. That means Shiny Black Sea Squatter can get sent, and we can summon 3 Shiny Black Sea Squatters on the field for 2000 attack. Pretty nice. Next up, we're playing 3 copies of Insect Knight. It's got 1900 attack, it's got 1500 defense, and of course, that makes it kind of the second best one after Shiny Black Sea Squatter. 100 less attack is nothing too big. I really love this card artwork. It's got that a classic copy pasta meme text, and just makes another good monster. And for our last one, I'm playing 2 copies of Neo Bug. Neo Bug is mostly in here because, well, it's a budget build. I need to fill out some decks. And in this kind of build, we are going to be aiming to use Ballpark's effect multiple times. Neo Bug only at 2 copies because we're already pushing the normal copies. I don't want to brick too much on them. But Neo Bug makes a good last hurrah. It's got 1800 attack. It's an earth monster. It is pretty cool. Next up, we are playing 1 copy of Metal Armored Bug. This is like a boss monster for the deck, a 2800 attack Earth Insect monster. Now, of course, we can't use this to summon off of Giant Ballpark's first effect, but we can use it to special summon off of Giant Ballpark's second effect, which is if a monster you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon an insect normal monster from your grave. Now, of course, that can be any of these, but that also can be Metal Armored Bug. And Metal Armored Bug, of course, has just 2800 attack is nice, has a lot of good synergies with Piercing the Darkness, and a lot of ways to get it into our graveyard, so it can be pretty accessible. Next, we are playing 1 copy of Goki Pole. Goki Pole is a pretty cool rare that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a level 4 insect monster from the deck to your hand. Then if you added a normal monster, you can special summon it, and you can destroy 1 monster on the field with attack greater than or equal to the special summon monster. That effect also makes Neo Bug nice because it's got 1800 attack, which is just less than the other 2, and sometimes that's the target I need to destroy a particular monster. Pretty good card. We can send it to the grave from Giant Ballpark and trigger its effect. Additionally, I'm playing 1 copy of Resonance Insect. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a level 5 or higher insect type monster from the deck to your hand. If this card is banished, you can send an insect monster from your deck to the graveyard. So Resonance Insect, of course, is nice because we can use it to search our Metal Armored Bug, or our next card, 2 copies of Bio Insect Armor. Another rare, 1500 attack, 5-star insect monster. If this card is in your hand or graveyard and you do not control Bio Insect Armor, you can target 1 insect monster you control, equip this card to it, but banish it when it leaves the field. Also, banish this equip card when it leaves the field. You can use this effect of Bio Insect Armor once per turn. The equipped monster gains 1500 attack and 2000 defense during the battle phase and main phase 2 only. So that's nice. That gives any of our monsters just a huge attack boost, and sometimes that attack boost is just enough that's going to help us end the game. And for our last monsters, I'm playing 3 copies of Infinite Antlion here. Pretty good card. Once per turn at the start of the damage step, when an insect monster battles, you can target 1 card you control and 1 card your opponent controls and destroy them. That's pretty nice. You can use that effect by not committing to summoning out all the insects from Giant Ballpark, leaving 1 in the deck. Use 1 as tribute for Antlion's effect. And then, of course, when you use Giant Ballpark next and send your last vanilla from the deck to the grave, you could special summon that one back from the grave too, which is pretty nice. Also, If this card is normal or special summon, you can equip an insect monster from your hand or graveyard to this card as an equip card that gives it 500 attack and defense. That's nice, puts it at 1700, but also is a way to get cards like Metal Armored Bug out of your hand. Also works with Resonance Insect or Goki Pole because you can equip them from your hand onto Antlion, use Antlion's effect to pop them, and then trigger their effects, which is pretty sweet. Also has one last effect that when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. So that's pretty cool. Can make it kind of like a hand trap that your opponent can unexpectedly run into. And that is it for the monsters. Next up for our spell cards, I am playing 2 copies of Pot of Duality. Pot of Duality says that we can't special summon, but in exchange we get to look at the top 3 cards of our deck and add one of them to our hand. This is very important for this deck because we are playing lots of powerful Floodgate trap cards that are going to be some of our main win cons, and giving up our special summon to grab one of those and get those added to our board is very important. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Pot of Extravagance. At the start of the main phase 1, we can banish 3 to 6 random extra deck cards face down and draw 1 card for every 3 that we banish. Not doing a ton of crazy extra deck stuff in this deck because we're mostly trying to OTK with Giant Ballpark and playing Floodgates. So we're glad to just make that extra deck card advantage to draw cards. Happy to do so. Next, we are playing 3 of Giant Ballpark. Giant Ballpark, the main field spell of this deck. During damage calculation, if a player would take battle damage, that can be you or your opponent, you can make neither player take any battle damage from that battle, and if you do, send a level 4 or lower insect monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then, if you sent a normal monster this way, you can special summon any number of monsters with the same name as that monster from your hand, deck, and or graveyard. If a monster you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon an insect normal monster from your grave. So this is nice. We can stop either of us from taking damage, send Insect Knight to the grave, then special summon out up to 3 Insect Knight, which is pretty nice. And of course we can do that with Shiny Black Sea Squatter or Neo Bug as well. Then, as I mentioned, the second effect can be used to bring Metal Armored Bug out of the grave, but also can be used to bring any of these guys out of the grave when a card of ours is destroyed. This is a great card. It allows us to open up lots of OTK potential because all we have to do is just do a little damage and then we can stop, we can negate 1 bit of damage and go into 3 Shiny Black Sea Squatters, pull them out of our deck, deal 6,000 damage. Just incredible stuff. Last for the spells, I'm playing 2 copies of Piercing the Darkness. If you normal or special summon a non-token normal monster, you can draw a card, which is pretty nice. That, of course, works with any of our normal monsters. Then, when an attack is declared involving an opponent's monster and a monster you control that is either a level 5 or higher normal monster, like Metal Armored Bug, or was ritual summoned, fusion, synchro, or XZ summoned using normal monsters material, you can make that monster you control gain attack equal to the opponent's attack. So that's nice. It's like an honest effect. That means we can take leftover vanilla monsters and we can overlay them into an Xyz monsters like Gem Knight Pearl or Malevolent Sin, and then that monster becomes hard to take out by battle because it's just going to gain attack to equal to the opponent's attack, and that can be important too for getting over some big monsters if we don't have bio insect armor. That is it for the spell cards. Next, going into our trap cards, I am playing 3 copies of Summon Limit. Summon Limit, incredibly powerful continuous trap. Neither player can summon more than 2 times per turn. This will hose a lot of combo decks, and we can certainly play around it because a Giant Ballpark summon that summons all 3 cards at once only counts as 1 summon, and we can, do that on our opponent's turn, and then on our turn do some different summoning. So lots of options here. Summon Limit is just very powerful and will slow the game down enough to where this strategy really sets in, an important part of this deck. Next, we're playing 1 copy of Skill Drain. This deck would be a lot more powerful if this card was at more than 1, but we'll still play with the one we got. Activate by paying 1,000 life points to negate the effects of face-up monsters while they are face-up on the field. So that's pretty cool. We're playing a deck of mostly normal monsters, and a lot of monsters have their effects in the grave, so the only card this really turns off is Infinite Antlion, but that's okay because starting off our opponent's monster effects is going to be way more impactful. Next, I'm playing the 1 Rivalry of the Warlords. Each player can only control one type of monster, and they have to send all other face-up monsters they control to the grave. Everything we're playing in the main deck is, of course, an insect monster. We have a insect monster we can go into our extra deck if we need to for Piercing the Darkness. So using this to stop decks that need multiple monster types is very good. In addition, we are also playing a copy of Gozen Match, which is like Rivalry of the Warlord except for attributes instead of types. Now, most of our insects in here are Earth insects. In fact, actually all of them that are in the main deck are Earth, which is pretty nice. So we don't have to worry about that, and decks that need multiple attributes will get hosed by this card. Lastly, for the fun updates, I'm testing out one copy of Power Sinkstone, an interesting card that's kind of like Skill Drain, except it has to wait till the second monster effect activates to negate all face-up monsters on the field. So that's pretty good. That usually just means that like maybe the combo pieces that search another card will go off, but by the time your opponent's getting into their extra deck monsters, those effects are going to be negated. And of course, if you can trigger effects yourself, like Infinite Antlion or any of these Goki Pole effects, you can speed up the counter. So just one card I'm testing to kind of make a make-up copy of Skill Drain may be replaced with a Pot of Prosperity. In addition, I'm playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Pay off our life points to negate a summon or a spell or trap card activation. This is just used to protect our floodgates and our conditions that are winning the board. If our opponent has a card that's going to out them, we're going to play Solemn Judgment and try to stop that card. Next, I'm playing one copy of Metaverse. We don't have Terraforming in Master Duel, but we do have Metaverse, and I do have one copy of it, so I'm going to play it just because we really want to see Giant Ballpark. So if we didn't draw into it, or Duality into it, or Extravagance into it, we can use Metaverse to activate it immediately from our deck. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Heavy Stormduster. This is mostly a Master Duel pick because there's a lot more back row decks in Master Duel, given that it's best of 1. Heavy Stormduster is a trap card that just targets up to 2 spells and traps on the field and destroys them. You can't conduct the battle phase this turn, but that's fine. We usually play it during our opponent's turn. And it's just really nice to deal with all those set Labyrinth trap cards, things like that. Just very handy. Last, we are playing one copy of Starlight Road, just something I have in here to protect our field from board wipes. Starlight Road, of course, is a trap card that just says when an effect is activated that would destroy 2 or more traps. You can negate the effect, and if you do, special summon a Stardust Dragon from your extra deck. Now, I have 3 Stardust Dragon, of course, so, you know, I can definitely summon it out, and Stardust Dragon has this effect again to tribute itself to negate the activation of a card that would destroy, so it just gives a double protection from board wiping type effects. Do note that this can interfere with Rivalry and Gozen Match, because you're not going to be able to summon your Wind or Dragon out if either of those are up. But not a big deal, of course. And given that the spirit of this is supposed to be budget, I mostly play this because I have it. But if not, you can just sub this out for any other card that can prevent back row from being destroyed. Things like Huge Revolution is over. Whatever you want to play to stop that kind of stuff is good. And that's it for the main deck. Going into our extra deck, I of course am playing 3 copies of Stardust Dragon, which is the card we can summon off of Starlight Road. It has the same effect that when a card or effect is activated that was destroyed, you contribute it, and if you do destroy it, now during the end phase, if this effect was activated, you can special summon this card from the graveyard. Now that's not true if you summon it off of Starlight Road because it's not summoned properly, but still worth playing just for that extra protection. Next, I'm playing 3 of Gemnite Pearl. Gemnite Pearl is just a 2600 Earth monster, so I can still go into it under Gozen Match. But it's a rank 4, and of course that's important because if we overlay 2 of our normal monsters to make this guy, then he can use Piercing the Darkness so that he can get an honest effect when he attacks monsters, and that's pretty good. Next, I got a copy of Gaga Cowboy that I just had, just playing it in here because 2 level 4 monsters, when we summon it in defense, we can detach to inflict 800 damage. Sometimes that can be the extra bit of damage needed to turn our attack into an OTK. So, because we can attack with our guys, and then afterward, main phase 2, go into Gaga Cowboy, etc. Next, a copy of Ragnar Zero, 2 level 4 monsters, once per turn, during either player's turn, detach a material, target an attack monster our opponent controls, with attack different than its original, destroy it, and if we do, draw a card. Kind of a niche thing, but it can go into. Next 3, number 70, Malevolent Sin, mostly in here because it's a rank 4 insect, so we can still go into it if Rivalry's on the board. And of course, it only requires 2 level 4s, so this monster can work with Piercing the Darkness and be able to get an honest effect when it attacks. Now we can detach a material from this card to target a monster our opponent controls and banish it until our opponent's next standby phase. That effect is also pretty handy because we can clear a monster from the field so that maybe we can get in more damage and OTK that turn. And then at the end of the damage step, if this card attack, you can make this card gain 300 attack, and if you do, increase its rank by 3, which is pretty cool. Next, I'm playing one Missus Radiant. Requires 2 Earth monsters. It can give all Earth monsters on the field 500 attack and defense. And of course, if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, target an Earth monster in our grave and add it to our hand. So just pretty nice. And last for the extra deck, playing 3 copies of Defender Labyrinth, 2 normal monsters, non-effect monsters you control gain 500 attack, and effect monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. And if this card in its possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target a non-effect monster in your graveyard and special summon it. We have plenty of those. We like the attack boost. We like getting our monsters back. Just overall, pretty good cards, although we don't go into them a ton. Mostly, we just need the extravagance / prospe fodder. So here's a replay to show the deck in action. I am going first against the ever so popular Dark Magician deck I run into at the beginning of a new season. I have a decent hand. There's Giant Ballpark. There's Solemn. We do have Power Sink Stone, which is not the great floodgate we want to see. So if I can pot a Duality into a better one, I will feel a lot better here. We're going to play Pot of Duality, Bio Insect, Giant Ballpark, Piercing the Darkness. Nothing great. We will grab Piercing the Darkness because that will come in handy. I'm going to play Giant Ballpark. I'm going to play Piercing the Darkness, and I'm going to set 3 other cards. Now I'm going to play Power Sink Stone right off the rip because I want to start, getting the counters on so we can negate cards. Now our opponent is going to play Dark Magical Circle. I don't like Dark Magical Circle because I can search them a card, and every time they summon Dark Magician, they're going to banish a card, and I can't really keep up with that. So I am just going to Judgment that right out the gate. They're just going to set 2 and pass the turn. Well, I got Heavy Storm Duster just for something like this. Going to pop those 2 cards. One, of course, being Eternal Soul, the one being Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Pretty cool, interesting card to have in a Dark Magician. Now they, of course, just only have 3 cards. Now I'm going to play I'm going to play my Infinite Antlion, even though I don't have anything, just so I can attack, negate the damage, activate Giant Ballpark. I send Shiny Black Sea Squatter, which now we have 3 of these guys out. So here's a solid 6,000 damage coming in. Then in main phase 2, I'm going to overlay these guys in the Malevolent Sin because I know this is Dark Magician, and Dark Magician has 2,500 attack. And, I want to be ready to attack over it, especially since they're only down to 2,000. So all I have to do is attack over it, and I can end the game. So they go Illusion of Chaos. They're going to add Magician's Rod. They're going to play Magician's Rod. Magician's Rod, of course, can grab Salvation. Now we have our second counter on Power Sink Stone, so effects are done for this turn. They are, of course, going to go into battle phase. I'm going to lose my Antlion, but take some damage here. It's all right. I can use Giant Ballpark to send Neobug and summon my 2 Neobugs. Now they're going to go, of course, into Magistus Moon. At the end phase, we lose our Power Sink Stone counters. But this looks pretty good for us to send. I'm going to tribute off my 2 Neobugs from Metal Armored Bug, get a draw off of Piercing the Darkness, and also gets Metal Armored Bug into rotation. Here goes the Maxi. Don't worry, I don't need to worry about that. Piercing the Darkness, of course, is going to have my Malevolent Sin attack for game, and they scoop. So that is it for my budget Ballpark deck profile. So, anyone who wants to dabble with this card and you want to make a new deck but don't have a ton of dust, this is definitely an option. A lot of this stuff is just super rares. Heavy Storm Duster comes from the structure deck. You don't need Stardust. The only ultras I would say you really need are kind of this Solemn Judgment, of course. So just a fun little option to have. I love normal monsters in any deck that can utilize them. And as opposed to the new insects, I really like that this deck just goes all in on the normal ones. If Skill Drain never got bumped back, this deck would get a huge power boost. But I enjoy playing it nonetheless. You'll probably see a more constructed level insect deck profile coming up in the future here. But I appreciate you all checking out this profile. I'll catch you later. See you in the next one.